Okay.
All right, awesome. My video is going to be off, but just to let you all know, I'm joining you from sunny Arizona tonight. Thank you all who, if this is your first meeting, welcome. If this is your second meeting, welcome back. Tonight is forum number 2 for the master plan. My name is Rachel Benson. I work for the town of Wrentham as the Director of Planning and Economic Development. And we have a great team, steering committee that's been working on this for the past almost year and a half. That's a good perspective, wealth, and breadth of knowledge that all these people bring to the table. And it's been really great to work with them. Least of all which, MAPC has been amazing to work with as well, which I'm going to turn it over to Josh Fiala now from MAPC to introduce his team. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for joining us when the weather's probably better than we're having here, at least warmer, I'd hope. Good evening, everyone. So Josh Fiala, Principal Planner at the Metropolitan Area Planning Council. We're happy to be with you this evening. Thank you very much for joining us and spending time with us. We appreciate, especially those who have joined us now for 2 meetings in the past 2 weeks. We're here back to talk about 3 new topics this evening, so thank you for joining us for that. I'm joined by several of my colleagues this evening who will be presenting and engaging with you all, including Andrea and Courtney from our Land Use Department, Mara, Adi, and Travis from our Transportation Department. Actually, check that because Travis has called in sick this evening, so we'll have 2 from our Transportation Department. So we'll be happy to have you engaging with our staff and talking to us about the different topics this evening. If you don't know about MAPC, we are the regional planning agency for the Boston area, and that includes Wrentham. And we provide planning assistance and technical assistance to those 101 cities and towns that you see on the screen, roughly those within the 495 belt. So we've been really pleased to be working with Wrentham, as Rachel described, for the last little bit now. So the master plan agenda this evening is to talk about 3 topics primarily: historical and cultural resources, community facilities and services, and energy and sustainability. The flow of the meeting will have our team present briefly on each of those topics to give a foundation for discussion, ending with a set of draft goals that have been drafted for your feedback this evening. We'll then open smaller group breakout sessions where we can hear from as many voices as possible while providing a shared Jamboard for you all to add notes and comments. And our staff and Rachel will walk you through how to do that when we get into the breakout rooms for those discussions. Just a few housekeeping items. The meeting is being recorded and will be available to watch for those unable to attend live. During the presentation, participants will be muted just so we can get through the content to share with you, but then in the you can add questions or comments in the chat. Feel free to do so. We do have a few Zoom polls which will just pop up on your screen as they're opened, and you are welcome to answer those. We'd be pleased if you give us some feedback when those pop up. And then most of the feedback will occur in those small group discussions where you'll be free to mute and unmute yourself and engage and do those Jamboards and give us all the thoughts you're thinking for these topics. As we did last meeting, before we get into the topics, just for anyone who missed it, we wanted to provide a background on what this is all about. A master plan is a town-wide planning effort that will guide decision-making and priorities in the town over the next 10 years. A master plan is developed through a public process that engages residents and stakeholders through a series of meetings and surveys, meetings much like this one and the one we hosted last week. It is guided by the master plan committee that Rachel introduced and will ultimately be adopted by the planning board of the town. This master plan has been split into 2 phases. Phase 1 was completed last year. In phase 1, a vision statement was defined. The goals and strategies for the topics of housing and economic development were also developed in much the same manner that we're developing those same similar sets of goals and strategies for the remaining 6 topics, which are part of phase 2. Here you can see we're probably about midstream in terms of the phase 2 run of events. You can see we're at about that middle part where it says public forums, kind of hovering over spring, although the weather outside wouldn't indicate that we're hovering over spring. And then next from here, we'll be trying to solidify the draft goals with your feedback and direction, and then make those goals more specific with strategies and actions within each topic area. So that's the lay of the land. And this planning process will ultimately be running through the summer and then concluding towards the beginning of the fall. Many of you have already participated in phase 1 or phase 2 meetings, and we really appreciate that, the energy you've put into this effort. A community survey about the phase 2 topics was out at the end of last year and received a great turnout with nearly 800 responses. Here's just a quick example of the type of data and feedback we received from the survey. You can see the various phase 2 master plan topics organized by how residents responded to the survey, ranked them in order. You can see our 3 topics there this evening too. So enough about us and our process. We'd love to hear about who's out there in our Zoom room. And to do that, I have a poll, which I'm going to bring up for you. And you have the option to answer these questions. You can also say prefer not to answer if you prefer not to answer one of them. But what we do with this data is compare it to town-wide data so that we can understand if the audiences we're receiving in these meetings is relatively representative of the town demographics. And then we can make corrections in the rest of our process to try to engage groups which we feel might have been underrepresented based upon these demographics. So that should be up on your screen now. And I see some responses starting to come in. If you scroll down in the poll, you should see all of the questions. There are 5 questions in total. So it looks like right now we've got about 38 participants in the meeting and about 64% have completed the survey. Just let it run for a couple more seconds. To 80% now. All right, while that finishes up, I'll just do a brief scroll and give you some information. So I see actually 100% of respondents have so far said they live in Wrentham. For the first answer, it looks like we have 55 to 64 years and 65 plus are the leading vote getters for age. White is the leading vote getter for race or ethnicity, followed by prefer not to answer. 100,000 to 149,000 looks like the top income range. And the majority, 82%, have previously attended a meeting, event, or survey. So thank you all for your dedication and for your responses there. We will review that data after the meeting and take a closer look at it. So since we have a really packed agenda, we don't want to delay any further. And Andrea will be presenting our first topic on historical and cultural resources. So I'll hand it off to Andrea.
Thanks, Josh. Hi, everyone. It's good to meet you. I'm Andrea, a planner on the team. I'm excited to talk to you tonight about the historical and cultural resources. Wrentham has a really fascinating history, and so it was really fun to do the research for the existing conditions analysis for the master plan. And I was able to talk to folks from the Cultural Commission, the Historical Commission, the Community Preservation Committee to help really get a good understanding of the historical and cultural resources. So a few quick facts before we get into it. So there are a lot of documented historical and cultural resources in town. 367 listings are in the state register, 90 of which have been officially listed and 5 are listed on the national register. There are about 100 sites that are also recognized locally through the local historic plaque designation program that the Historical Commission leads up. The map here, it's kind of hard to read maybe on the screen, but all of the little dots show those individual listings that are on the state inventory. And then where you see sort of the outlines, those are historic districts that have been designated. So a collection of resources. There are a few municipal tools and capacity that the town has at their disposal to help with historic preservation and cultural preservation work. The Historical Commission has been established and is really active, as I mentioned, with the local historic designation program and some other work that I'll talk about in a minute. The town has enacted a demolition delay bylaw. This gives the Historical Commission oversight on applications to demolish structures of a certain age or history in town. There's also the Cultural Council that's really active in distributing state grant funding for different cultural activities. And the town has passed the Community Preservation Act, which allows for funds to be set aside and used for a variety of things, but also including historic preservation. So 4 really significant tools to preserve the local history and culture. So Wrentham has a lot going for it for preservation efforts. It's really unique in that the preservation efforts to date have really focused on artifact preservation. There are a lot of really interesting artifacts that the Historical Commission has obtained and has started to archive and document that really tell the history of Wrentham. There has been a little less momentum for formally designating historic and cultural resources on the National Register or the State Register. I wanted to just briefly mention the benefits of designating on the National Register or State Register. Whenever you have a property that's designated on the National Register, you have an opportunity for different grant sources. So federal, state, and nonprofit grants can help fund planning efforts and then preservation of specific sites and resources. There are also tax credits available for rehabilitation of commercial buildings that are listed on the National Register. So that gives an opportunity for some public-private partnerships and different development opportunities to help maintain historic resources. And then also there's a big preservation community that is really centered around the State Historic Preservation Office and the resources that are listed formally and designated on the National Register and State Register. And that leads to just expanded resources, learning opportunities, and capacity building. As I mentioned, there aren't that many properties in Wrentham that are listed. The Wampum House, I think, is a good example of something that would be eligible for the National Register. It's owned by the town, maintained by the Historical Commission, but it's not registered or designated. So it doesn't have access to sort of all these benefits that come along with formal designations. Another key finding from looking at the historical and cultural activities in town is that historic resources and landscapes are at risk. Because of the lack of formal designation that I mentioned, that means that there are fewer protections in place whenever there are applications to change or modify different historic structures. There aren't really any local protections beyond the demolition bylaw. So if say you have a historic structure and someone wants to come in and make a pretty significant modification, then there's nothing in the local bylaw to prevent that from happening and potentially putting the architectural integrity at risk. There's also interesting historical development patterns in Wrentham. It's a very beautiful rural town with like a rural landscape and interesting settlement patterns that have happened over time. But a lot of those historic settlement and development patterns aren't allowed under the current zoning. So as development occurs, some of those kind of historic characteristics of places like Sheldonville or Wampum Corner may not be able to be sustained as development occurs. And then also there are some gaps in the identified resources. So as I mentioned, there are about 360 or so resources that have been identified. The graph here shows what time periods are represented in those inventoried resources. And you can see that not much has been listed since 1950. And you don't have much before 1600. So there maybe are some gaps in the indigenous history of Wrentham and more modern history. One of the other significant key findings is that Wrentham is really rich in cultural activities. So not only is there a lot of history that's been documented, but there's a lot of cultural activities for residents, things like Wrentham Day, various events on the common, different events that are happening. And there's a lot of local enthusiasm for these different community events and just the preservation and promoting of Wrentham's history. As I mentioned, the Historical Commission is really active in artifact preservation and uses a variety of ways to make sure that the history of Wrentham is preserved and stories are told. And that's really exciting and really encouraging for preservation efforts. The survey that Josh mentioned did ask a couple of questions about cultural resources. One of those being, we asked folks where the most memories are made in Wrentham. It was really fun to see a lot of the answers. A lot of people mentioned that events in the common, that's something that really stuck out to people's minds. The different events that happen at the parks and rec fields and sporting events, at the lakes, down at Sweat Beach. So a lot of good memories are being made in Wrentham and preserving the culture. We also asked, so what places and people define the history and culture of Wrentham? About 60% of folks said, again, town center, town common, and Sweat Park. That really defines the history and culture of Wrentham. 48% of folks said the conserved open spaces. So the state forest, Joe's Rock, there are lots of really great just open spaces and conservation areas that people find defining in history and culture. And about 42% said the lakes. We also asked what is most important regarding the preserving, promoting, and interpreting of history. A little over half of folks said that it's really important to reduce sprawl to make sure that the open space and the rural landscapes are preserved, since that's such an important part of Wrentham's history. We heard a lot about working farms, and that's something that people want to see protected and promoted. And then also the preservation of just the historical and cultural sites that have already been recognized from that first map on this first slide. It was also interesting to see that people want to celebrate the Indigenous history and the colonial history and how that works together. And so that's an opportunity for furthering the history and cultural resources. So we took all of the analysis of looking at the existing conditions, all of the documented resources, our conversations with the Historical Commission member and Cultural Council and Community Preservation Council, and drafted these goals that we hope to get your feedback on this evening, see if they're kind of hitting the mark. The first being to preserve and add to the historic character of Wrentham. Whenever we shared this with the steering committee in February, it was really important to not just preserve, but to continue to add to make sure that those gaps in the historic resources, that you're getting a complete inventory. The second goal being protect existing historic and cultural resources as development occurs. Increasing local capacity to manage and enhance historic and cultural resources. So that's leveraging the tools that you already have. Continue hosting community events, especially those that can be co-located with historical or cultural resources. And elevating stories in Wrentham's history for underrepresented groups. That means the people of color, women, people with lower incomes who've experienced Wrentham maybe in a different way than is documented, and our LGBTQ population. So just trying to make sure that we get all of these stories represented to get a complete history of Wrentham. So we'd love to hear your thoughts if there are any others that you'd like to suggest, or if you have refinements to these draft goals.
Great, thank you, Andrea, for that excellent presentation and insights on the goals. So we're going to open the breakout rooms, and so these are randomly assigned breakout rooms with our 5 facilitators. And so we have 5 rooms. There's about 7 or 8 per room at this point. So I will do that, and the facilitators will show you how to use the Jamboard and get your feedback on these draft goals that Andrea has presented. I will see you back here in about 15 minutes, a little longer than 15 minutes. And the breakout room should just pop up on your screen. You can say okay and enter right into the room. Sorry, I've got a few of you who have not assigned yet, so let me assign you to a room. All right, so that should be everyone. Did you see it, Stephanie, pop up on your screen? Good. Hi, Narendra. Thank you for joining us. We're in breakout rooms right now talking about historical and cultural resources. So I'll assign you to a room and you can join one of those conversations. Hi, Jane. Thank you for joining us. We're midstream in terms of some breakout discussions on cultural and historic resources. So I will put you into a breakout room and you can join that discussion. Then we'll be back in the main room talking about the next topic in just a few minutes. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. We'll let people get back from their waiting rooms. There's just a few seconds left of the waiting room, or of the breakout rooms. Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Thank you for the great discussions. I was able to pop in and out of the rooms. And I always feel bad when I press the button to end those rooms because I know someone's in the middle of a thought. So thank you for participating in those discussions. We do have similar to what we did in the last forum, an exit poll where you will be able to let us know your thoughts on the historical and cultural draft goals overall as a set. And that poll should be popping up on your screen now. And it asks, did you feel the set of draft historical and cultural goals is about right for the master plan? And you can choose they are very close, close, you feel neutral about it, not close, or way off. And this helps us to gauge your collective response to the draft set of goals as they currently stand, and we'll take this into account with the feedback that we've received and figure out how much revision is warranted. Looks like we still have a few more answers rolling in, up to about 80% participating now. The meeting participation is holding steady, just below 40 people participating currently. So it looks like most people thought they are close, 52%, followed by very close at 35% and 13% at neutral. So thank you for giving us that feedback and all of the individual comments that you provided on the historical and cultural draft goals. We'll be taking each of those comments back and taking a close look at them, trying to understand patterns from the comments, ways that we can improve them, and taking many of the comments which may have been more detailed than would happen at the goal level, and we'll actually be mining that information and ideas for strategies and actions which might help to fill out what a goal might mean in the master plan. Our next topic is community facilities and services. And for that topic, we have Courtney Lewis from our staff to present and walk us through to the draft goals for this topic.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Courtney Lewis. I'm a regional planner in the land use department at MAPC, and I will be leading the community facilities and services element of the master plan. In this element of the plan, we want to identify and prioritize investments in buildings, facilities, infrastructure, but we also want to evaluate services and human resources that the town will need to meet future and current to meet current and future demands. The town's natural and built character and infrastructure are constantly evolving. And as Wrentham continues to grow, it's extremely important that the town have adequate and well-designed facilities that provide a base of operation for town departments and gathering spaces for the community. The town will also need to consider how to meet space and staffing needs so that the town is able to provide residents and businesses with dependable and high quality services. Excuse me. There are over 24 departments that oversee the day-to-day operations of the town of Wrentham. As you can see from this map, community facilities and services are a major component of the town's physical, social, and economic fabric. In addition to buildings, This includes roadways, utilities like the municipal drinking water, parks, playgrounds, and cemeteries, and as well as public services like public safety, healthcare, and wellness services, and recreation and cultural programming. So the town has recently completed several planning efforts that assess Wrentham's existing facilities and infrastructure. Many of these efforts have identified needed investments in the town's public buildings, roadways, and pedestrian infrastructure, the municipal water system, and the town's parks, recreation facilities, open space, and conservation areas. One common theme identified among all these plans is that the town has several key facility and infrastructure improvements that will need to be addressed in the next 10 years. When we get to the stage in this planning process where we're making recommendations, we want to make sure that that any proposed actions align with these previous planning efforts and support goals and objectives highlighted in other elements of this master plan. It was fine. The town does maintain a capital improvement plan, or a CIP, which is reviewed and updated annually. And this document is used to guide improvements to town-owned buildings, infrastructure, and equipment. One thing to note about the CIP is that that it's not necessarily a it seems to be less of a formalized process, and I don't think it clearly communicates the necessity or the severity of some of the capital improvements and maintenance issues of the town. I don't know that that's communicated well with the public. Different town staff and departments have intimate knowledge of some of these issues, but I don't know that it's always shared with the public. So that's just one thing that I've found through conversations with different staff members and the public. Before we discuss some of the survey findings, I just wanted to take a moment to clarify the two major components of this chapter. A public facility is a town-owned property that is developed for a particular public purpose. This includes public infrastructure, as I mentioned before, but also utilities and other non-building facilities. So parks, playgrounds, cemeteries. Andrea highlighted the Wampum House, which is a town-owned property as well. And public facilities also serve as a base of operations for town departments, employees, and community events as well. So, for instance, the public safety building houses the fire and police departments, and town hall houses several town departments. Community services includes things like police, fire, and EMS services, but also public education, the town library, solid waste and recycling, and the municipal drinking water. Those services are also augmented by partner organizations and contracted services like that offer services like housing assistance, public health, recreation, arts, and culture. So taking a look at some of the survey results, we asked what the town should prioritize as it relates to town services, and the top 3 responses included providing better response times to public works needs, and so issues like road maintenance, potholes, plowing, street lighting, things like that. Providing online services for day-to-day transactions, things like paying your taxes, being able to pay taxes online, excise bills, apply for permits or dog licenses, and even scheduling appointments with municipal staff. And then the last thing was providing more educational and curricular programming for youth in grades 7 to 12. All right. We also, when asked what the town should prioritize as it relates to facilities, the top 3 responses were improving the town's water supply infrastructure. And I think that may have scored pretty high in the survey because of the town's recently completed municipal water system master plan. So that was probably at the top of a lot of people's minds. Another thing that people felt was important to prioritize was providing a transfer station for expanded waste disposal and recycling, and installing water infrastructure in the town center to help attract new investment. Next slide. We asked people to rate the physical condition of several municipal facilities, and the facilities that had the lowest scores, or that people felt were in the poorest condition, were the water infrastructure, the DPW facility, and then there were also several write-in comments. We also asked about challenges in terms of town governance and services. And the top 2 challenges identified were effective communication and outreach in the town, and increasing efficiency and the effectiveness of town government and services. And there were comments about issues with disseminating information about town services, different town events, and meetings on the town website. So based on existing conditions, comments, and suggestions from the community survey and discussions with different town staff, the overarching theme of the following draft goals are to proactively invest and prepare Wrentham's facilities, services, and human resources to meet future and to meet future needs and challenges, to strengthen communication and collaboration internally amongst town departments, but also externally with the public and the community, and provide greater clarity and transparency to of town policies when it comes to making decisions and investments in capital improvements.
Great, thank you so much, Courtney. And so in the similar model, we will start breakout rooms now for a quick discussion on these draft goals for community facilities and services, and then we'll come back for the final topic of energy and sustainability. So I will open those rooms now. You should see that pop up on your screen. Good evening, Catherine. Thank you for joining the meeting. We're in the midst of breakout discussions on the topic of community facilities and services presently. So I'm going to drop you into one of those rooms. You should see a button pop up on your screen to join right now. Hi, Stephanie. It looks like you maybe popped out. You were in a room and now you need to be put back in your room. Let me see if I can get it so you can, oops, sorry. You're unable to mute right now, but let me see if I can fix that. There we are. Can you unmute yourself? Press a button there.
Yes, I didn't have any speaker. I couldn't hear what was going on or the sound, so I left the meeting so I could
Oh,
come
okay.
back in. That seemed to work now because you
Great.
can hear me. I can hear
Good.
you. That's good. So if you could put
You
me back
fixed
in
it.
room 1, that'd be great.
Yes, I'll drop you right in there now.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank you for joining us. We're just wrapping up a discussion around community facilities and services. So I'll drop you in one of those discussion rooms, and then we'll be back in the main room to discuss the next topic very shortly. Welcome back. Looks like people are still trickling back in. Apologies for closing that if you were in the middle of a comment. All right, so it looks like everyone should be coming back now. Okay, welcome back. And I have noticed if there's a few different technical issues occurring, so we apologize if you're one of the people experiencing those technical issues, but we couldn't expect this meeting to go quite as smooth as the first one did. So we again apologize if you are experiencing any technical issues. We'll try to work through them the best we can. So let me pop up on your screen the exit poll for community facilities and services. You should see that now. And it similarly asks, how did you feel about the set of draft community facilities and services goals? Is it right for the master plan? And the responses you can choose from are very close, close, neutral, not close, or way off. And again, this helps guide us in terms of responding to your feedback this evening and thinking about the types of revisions to these draft goals that are needed. So 73%, getting close to 80 now. Most 50% are saying close, that the draft goals are close. 35% are saying neutral, 15% very close. All right, looks like our responses have basically concluded, so that's where it landed. I will close that poll now. And I have the pleasure of presenting the final topic for our evening, which is energy and sustainability. So we'll get you set for that conversation now. So energy and sustainability are of increasing importance to residents, businesses, and municipalities. The most common areas of focus include a desire to reduce energy costs, reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and prepare for the impacts of climate change. For the town, total energy costs represent a significant portion of annual town spending, $680,000 in 2020. Most of those energy costs are electricity, including lighting and cooling. These costs also represent a significant area for potential savings, and the town is planning on an energy reduction of 20% over the next 5 years. In the tables to the right, you can see some of the amounts of energy use by municipal facility type and the top 5 highest energy consuming municipal buildings in Wrentham. Buildings by far are the largest municipal energy users, with certain facilities that are major contributors, such as the Delaney Elementary School building. However, municipal electricity use accounts for only 3% of all electricity use in the town. Massachusetts has a statewide goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions to net zero by 2050. In this context, net zero is achieved when the amount of electricity produced from renewable sources is the same as the amount of electricity being used. This is achieved through energy efficiency, local clean energy production, and purchasing renewable energy. The town and residents have benefited from programs to make progress toward this goal, such as Mass Saves, which supports energy efficiency upgrades. The line graphs on the right are tracking the use of electrical incentives and electric savings, comparing residential and low-income users with commercial and industrial users. The commercial and industrial users use more energy overall than the residential and low-income users, but residential and low-income users have taken advantage of more of those incentives and have been able to make more annual electrical savings comparatively. Wrentham also participates in the Property Assessed Clean Energy Financing Program, or PACE for short. That allows financing to occur for energy and water upgrades through an assessment which is added to the annual property tax, rather than needing to make those capital investments all upfront at once. So it's a really useful tool that the town has available for residents. Wrentham has adopted new policies to encourage energy efficiency and renewable energy generation. This includes the most recent adoption of the Stretch Energy Code. With it, the town is now eligible for designation as a green community by the Massachusetts Department of Energy Resources, which would provide access to additional state grant sources. But it's not just municipal actions that will make the difference. All households and activity in the town and region are contributing. You can see the carbon emissions per household in the region for all the municipalities, with the highest emissions shaded in the darker tones of red on that map. Wrentham is not the darkest tone of red you can see, but it is a contributing emission source. And that's cumulatively all sort of municipal uses and all households. In this figure, you can see how the carbon emissions from an average household break down. Travel is typically the largest category, with daily vehicular travel the largest contributor to household emissions. You can see how this topic relates directly to land use and transportation and some of the other conversations that we're having in the forums. One approach to reducing carbon emissions is to increase the use of renewable energy. Investment has been occurring in local renewable energy, with about 335 installations in Wrentham to date. Most are solar panels on residential properties. Several larger installations have been made, notably ones at Mount St. Mary's Abbey, the Wrentham Developmental Center, and some other larger commercial and industrial properties. In 2018, the town participated in the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness, MVP program, and created a hazard mitigation plan. These plans highlight the vulnerabilities the town is experiencing, including inland flooding, extreme heat and heat waves, severe storms, which you can see illustrated in the chart, and drought. The plan identifies a collection of specific investments and programs focused on improving preparation for community-wide emergency events. The town has begun to address climate-related inland flooding through a new green infrastructure master plan to improve stormwater management, and has received a $100,000 plus grant from the Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. So that's work that is just getting underway. In the town-wide Phase 2 Master Plan survey, we asked what your familiarity is with the 2018 Community Resilience Building Workshop and Plan. Most people had not heard of it, but would like to know more. So it was about 64% of the respondents. So hopefully we're kind of laying some of those breadcrumbs in these presentations. Also from the survey, we asked nearly 800 respondents to rank local climate impact concerns. The most concern was expressed for power outages from extreme weather events, followed by drought. Unfortunately, both of those are elevated risks with climate change as we move forward in time. And finally, we asked a question that sets the foundation for our topic goals in energy and sustainability. How important are the following energy and sustainability goals? The top vote responses were promoting new clean energy and generation, followed by development of a community-wide climate action plan and supporting greenhouse gas and energy cost reductions. So building upon all that analysis and the community defined priorities, the potential draft set of goals for energy and sustainability are on the screen now. Just go through them real quickly. So promoting new clean energy generation. This could be either locally within the town or outside of the town by supporting policies such as municipal aggregation, which is purchasing electricity in bulk, and including in that a renewable clean energy requirement. That would be one approach. Oops, sorry. Developing a community-wide action plan. This could build upon the recently completed town efforts, which I outlined, and develop more specific assessment and action plans to set the town goals and how to meet those goals, to basically set the thresholds and then the actions to get to those climate goals. And that would be a more specific and in-depth effort than we'll be able to cover in the master plan. So we'll be able to point the way to that, but I don't think we would be able to accomplish exactly what the town might need through this planning effort. Supporting residents and businesses in reducing their greenhouse gas emissions and energy costs. This could include increasing awareness of programs that already exist, explore expanding program offerings, explore municipal aggregation that I mentioned, or expanding the funding of those programs and the connections to them. Reducing municipal greenhouse gas emissions and energy costs could look at things like identifying building improvements for energy efficiency upgrades, looking at the town vehicle fleet and the use of apparatus and equipment, and look at ways to electrify some of those vehicles or equipment, and other approaches that might be available to the town. And then preparing the town infrastructure for the impacts of climate change would look at the implementation of items identified in the Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program, such as that townwide green infrastructure plan, which is currently underway. But there are other risks that were identified as well that would require some additional actions. From this starting point, again, we invite your feedback, comments, and questions to help strengthen this set of goals. And I'll open up the breakout rooms for this final. This is our third and final discussion, which will occur. This will take us right. We'll all come back together at the end and just talk very briefly about some next steps from here for the master plan process. So thank you all. Hi, Evan. We're having a breakout discussion on energy and sustainability presently, so I just dropped a link to join that room. Good evening. We're just working through finishing up a breakout discussion on energy and sustainability. So rather than send you off to that room and then bring you right back, I'm just going to have you be here for a moment because I'm going to close those rooms momentarily. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. As people filter back in, got about 30 seconds left on that clock that comes up in the breakout rooms. While people are coming back in, just wanted to thank you all for all of your insights and sharing with us this evening, both in terms of your time and your expertise in the community. So we do have one final poll. Looks like everyone's back now. So welcome back again. Thank you for your discussion in those breakout rooms. It really is helpful for us to hone the direction of the goals in the master plan. Here is the final poll of this 2-forum series on energy and sustainability, the exit poll. Did you feel the set of draft energy and sustainability goals is about right for the master plan? With your response options as very close, close, neutral, not close, or way off. Still have answers coming in now. Great, just about everyone has participated now. Looks like it's almost a third, a third, a third in terms of very close, close, and neutral, with a vote also for way off. So perhaps a little bit of work to do within this section to get them more aligned with what you're thinking for the future of the town. So just very briefly, it looks like we're right at our mark right now in terms of the time allotment. So next steps, we will be reviewing all of the comments, questions, and feedback that have been gathered at this forum and the forum on the 22nd. So we appreciate all the effort again. Recordings of the meetings and the presentations are available. The previous forum is available already up on the website, and this will be made available on the website shortly. We invite you to sign up for occasional email updates from the master plan process to stay engaged with us, and you can also do that through the website as well. We'll be refining the goals and then starting to develop strategies and actions from here. The next master plan committee meeting will be on April 28th. I believe that will be occurring at 8:30 in the morning. We need to announce that also to the committee. But you're welcome to join us and see how those conversations unfold as well. That will be posted on the town website. So all of those resources which I just described are available at www.mapc.ma/Wrentham Vision. And this will be where you can go for all of those resources. There's phase 1 information, phase 2 information, summaries from the community survey, and all of that information is available there. Oh, I should mention also, actually, we have more fully developed existing conditions briefing documents for each of the 6 topics which we've covered in these 2 forums. And those go in more depth in terms of the data and analysis than we were able to cover in the presentations in these forums. So if you're really interested in those details, you can take a look at each of those 6 documents, which are right at the top of the website under Draft Existing Conditions Overviews. So with that, thank you all very much for your participation. And I also invite you, if you felt unsatisfied by your event this evening, please do reach out to us. You can reach out to me. My email address is jfiala, my last name, Fiala, mapc.org. We'd be happy to hear your comments or talk with you, follow up with you if you need more time with us. That would be great. So thank you all very much. Enjoy your evenings, and we'll look forward to making this the best master plan we can for the town of Wrentham. Have a great night.